I was going to rip his heart out. I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me.
We appreciate you spending your time to speak to us. Boxing's huge right now. So much is going on. You got Sergio Martinez next week over in the States. How's things going over there?
I'm sorry, Ryan?
So you got Sergio Martinez coming up over in the States shortly. How's things going over there?
Quick, yeah, right. Well, the publicity for the fight has been stepped up this week, and it's going to be in full drive next week. As most American media that covers boxing is going to be congregating in New York City to cover it. And, Ring Magazine will have at least 2 full-time writers there. Tim Smith, who writes for the magazine and also does work for the website, will be there, and Len Satterfield, who is our full-time writer for RingTV.com, will also be in New York City. So it's a big deal. When you send more than one person to cover it, we'll have a video guy there, and we'll have a photographer there, and it's a big deal because you're talking about the middleweight championship of the world, a middleweight champion who's not just a belt holder, but he's a lineal champion.
Yeah,
he beat Kelly Pavlik, who had beaten Jermaine Taylor, who beat Bernard Hopkins, who was the undisputed champion. Bernard Hopkins left no doubt in anybody's mind by unifying all the belts, like all 4 major 160-pound titles. IBM, the first one he had, and he defended that a record 20 times. And then he unified with the WBC title and the WBA title and even the WBO title. Yeah. When he beat Oscar De La Hoya in 2004. So, there's real lineage here, and there's a guy who's been the man on top of the division for 4 years, but he's looked shaky in recent fights and in recent years. It looks like age is catching up with him. It looks like the wear and tear of all these fights that he's had, all these tough battles that he's had. Perhaps fighting a little bit heavier than his natural weight, which most people believe is junior middleweight. Yeah. But what really makes it an event is that Miguel Cotto's involved. That Miguel Cotto, one of the most popular fighters of the past 15 years, a bona fide star and attraction in Puerto Rico and the East Coast, and where he sells the most tickets. It's not his native Puerto Rico, and it's not Atlantic City, and it's certainly not Las Vegas. Yeah. It's New York City. And particularly when he fights at Madison Square Garden. And he sold that place out more than a few times, and he's going to do so again when he steps into the ring against Sergio Martinez. And I've been there. I was there, when Bernard Hopkins unified the title against Felix Trinidad, and that place was packed because of Trinidad. And I was there when Felix Trinidad won a piece of the middleweight title when he beat WBA belt holder William Joppy.
I remember that.
Was May of 2001, and that atmosphere. The place was filled to the rafters with Felix Trinidad fanatics, and it was one of those long Don King cards where literally there were like maybe 12 undercard bouts.
Don King used to do the super cards.
Oh yeah, it was a Don King supercard. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The main event was a pay-per-view fight here in the United States, and there were some notable fighters on the undercard, like Vernon Forrest, Chris Bird, and all, but nobody cared. Everybody was there. They were there to see Tito, and probably from the opening bout, there was about 8,000 people in the arena, which gradually grew to 10,000, which grew to 15,000, which grew to the capacity. But they were just there celebrating. They were there for Felix Trinidad. Yeah. And I would say Cotto's fans, they're not quite as fanatical. They're not celebrating so much as for Cotto as they are for Tito, but they're definitely there to support the native Puerto Rican. And I've been in that building at the storied Madison Square Garden Arena for some Cotto bouts, which where the electricity almost reached Felix Trinidad levels, and definitely when Miguel Cotto fought Zab Judah, a native New Yorker, that place was electric. That place, the atmosphere was it was thick, and it was festive, and there was tension, and and Judah bought his fans, but I mean, Cotto bought more fans, and were treated to a real terrific performance and a terrific fight. And I think they're going to get that same sort of thing. You know, they're going to get the same experience against Martinez. Although it's my opinion that Martinez, unlike Zab Judah, is going to be one southpaw who has a little bit too much for Cotto.
Yeah,
but a lot of people are picking Cotto. A lot of people are picking the A side.
Yeah. My problem I have with this fight is that Cotto, I'm not sure he could really carry 160 or 159 at the catch weight. Well, I've seen Miguel Cotto. I know you've met him before previously. Do you think he could hold the weight successfully for 12 rounds?
I do. I think he can carry the weight and box effectively. I think he's not a natural middleweight, though. I mean, that's the bottom line. I think that he can go out there and he can execute. I think he can move as quickly. I think his reflexes will be just as good fighting at 159 as they were fighting at 154 pounds or 147 pounds. But I don't think he's used to fighting somebody who's grown
to the weight completely.
Middleweight, which is what Martinez is. I mean, Cotto, he's had a nice run at 154 pounds. Yeah. But he has, even at 154 pounds, okay, who did he fight at 154? He fought Yuri Foreman. Yes. Who was a natural junior middleweight, but not a puncher.
No, definitely not.
Not a busy and aggressive fighter the way, or athletic, as athletic as Sergio Martinez is. And then he fought Ricardo Mayorga, who's not a natural junior middleweight, somebody coming up from 147, just like Cotto was, and who was probably shop-worn, probably a little bit long in the tooth.
Yeah, my level was not very active.
He fought Margarito, right? Margarito, not a natural junior middleweight, a big welterweight, but somebody who's definitely been through the meat grinder, somebody absolutely not at his peak, not in his prime. And then there was Mayweather, another guy, not a natural junior middleweight. And then there was Delvin Rodriguez, maybe a natural junior middleweight, but somebody coming up from 147, but not an elite fighter.
No, not
anybody in Martinez's class.
Not a grueling guy.
Right, and not a guy who's going to put it on.
Yeah.
So I think he's got. I believe that no pun intended. Cotto, who's probably about 5'7", no taller than 5'8". He's got a tall order.
Yeah, it's very.
Martinez.
Do you think Freddie Roach and Cole are banking on Martinez's age and his inactivity with knee injuries, knee surgery, rehabilitation of his shoulder, the hand?
Absolutely.
That's what they're banking on.
Absolutely, they're rolling the dice, and they don't look at it as. They don't look at it like it's a huge risk, though. I mean, they're taking. It is a bit of a gamble. It is a bit of a gamble because they know the guy is 39. They know he looks shaky. That he fell apart in the final round against Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. He did not look very good against
Martin Murray
last April, and he did look like somebody whose body has not only begun to break down physically, but somebody who's just looks like age is catching up. The reflexes weren't quite there. The snap on his punches weren't quite there as they had been in previous bouts. And, I think it's a smart gamble. It's a calculated risk. That's what it is. It's a calculated risk because there's two tough fights. Yeah,
there's no harm for Cole because if you lose to the legit champ of the division and he's a Hall of Famer like yourself, it doesn't take enough away from Cole.
Right. Also, that's a good point. If they are wrong and he does lose, which I think he will. Yeah. I've been wrong many times before.
I read the mailbag all the time, Dougie. I see you once or twice.
Yeah, no, it happens all the time actually, and that's what makes it fun. If I would fight all the time, I wouldn't bother watching the fights, would I?
No, definitely.
But I think Cotto and Roach are a good pair. I think Cotto is at his best as a smart, offensive-minded technician. I think the Cuban guy that he had,
Pedro Diaz,
is that? Very good coach. I think Pedro Diaz is great with Guillermo Rigondeaux because he's more of a natural counterpuncher and more of a defensive-minded fighter who doesn't like to engage that much. But I think when Cotto was at his best was when he was pressing the issue.
Yeah, and going forward.
So with intelligence and. So he's got that offensive mojo that he didn't have with Pedro Diaz. He's setting down on his punches more. He's really committing to his punches. I like the technique with his left hook. He's going to the body the way he used to. And I think that they believe that they can catch Martinez with some clean shots in the exchanges. And who knows, maybe a clean left hook from Cotto will produce the same results as it did against a lesser fighter in Delvin Rodriguez against Martinez. You know, Martinez has been down, but the thing is Martinez gets up.
Yeah, he does.
And although technically speaking he's not textbook, you know, he keeps his hands down. Sometimes he's
not
that sharp or clean with his punches, but yeah, he's in and out. He relies on his athleticism, and guys who rely on their athleticism, when they get a bit long in the tooth, when those reflexes begin to fade a little bit, well, that's when they get caught. And it's even happened to Roy Jones Jr., who was an amazing athletic talent, with great hand-eye coordination and reflexes. And Martinez quite in Roy Jones Jr.'s class. But, you know, I think the size will matter. I think that Martinez is used to being hit by much bigger guys. I think if he gets hurt, he'll deal with it. He knows how to survive. The guy's got a lot of fights, you know, and a lot of fights at that championship level. I think he'll survive, and I think he's going to set a pace that's going to be very difficult for Cotto. And it's not just so much his size and his activity, but as you alluded to, that athletic in-and-out style. I think the style is going to pose a problem for Cotto. Him being a southpaw and the way he's just in and out and around and all over you, I think it might give Cotto some flashbacks to Manny Pacquiao. Yeah.
You know, playing devil's advocate, if Cotto was to win, I don't think no one sees Cotto staying at 160. Do you see him defending the title or just relinquishing or even causing it a day of retiring?
I don't think he'll retire. I mean, it's very few fighters who retire
on top
on such a huge win. Yeah, I mean I mean, it'll be so hard for him to walk away because he'll not only be the lineal middleweight champion of the world, he will have made history by becoming the first Puerto Rican fighter to win major titles in 4 weight classes. And you know, he's never really had. I mean, he's always had support from Puerto Rico, but he's never been just loved the way they loved Felix Trinidad, the way they loved Wilfred Benitez, the way they loved Wilfredo Gomez. He's never had that. I think they'll get, because they're so desperate right now. There's nobody, no A-side fighter who's considered a champion right now. No, they don't consider Danny Garcia to be Puerto Rican. They're in Philadelphia. His parents were born in Puerto Rico, but he's Puerto Rican in America, and it's not the same thing. So I think, you know, the pride that Puerto Rican fans will feel from their fighter beating such a respected champion, he'll have to fight again. You know, it's just at least once more. And there's huge fights out there, and I definitely think he would stay at 160 pounds. He would definitely be the middleweight champ because that's leverage for him. If he wants to try to go across the street and go back to Golden Boy and go to Showtime and do a super fight with Floyd Mayweather, which would be a highly anticipated rematch.
Yes, it would be.
That's leverage for him. He's like, hey, man, I'm not coming down at no catch weight. I'm not coming down below 154 pounds. Matter of fact, Floyd, you're going to have to come
to me
a little bit heavier than, you know, if this is going to be a middleweight title fight, you have to at least fight at 155. So I think, you know, those titles, the Ring Magazine belt and the WBC title, that becomes leverage for him, you know, in a super fight with Mayweather. Because I think Mayweather prefers to fight between 147 and, you know, maybe 149, 150 pounds. That's best for him because of his speed and reflexes. He doesn't want to have too much weight.
You know, if going forward then with Martinez, if Martinez wins, where do you think he goes? Do we get to see GGG this year? Is it a possibility?
Yeah, I think so because, I mean, you know, a dream fight for Martinez, and this is one of Martinez's dream fights, and one of the reasons I'm picking him is he's going to be up for this fight way more than he was up for the Martin Murray fight. Certainly, maybe even more than he was up for Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Jr. Wasn't expected. Cotto, you got to respect, and Cotto's a future Hall of Famer, so Martinez is up for this fight, but there's even better future Hall of Famers out there, like Mayweather and Pacquiao, and although Arum has teased the media saying maybe a Martinez-Pacquiao fight could happen, I don't think that.
Not.
You know, and I also don't think that Floyd will fight him, you know. It's just too much, I don't know. Maybe Floyd would surprise me and do that, and that would be great, and Martinez would love that, but I don't think those fights could be made. So the next biggest fight for him, beneath obviously Pacquiao and Mayweather, is Triple G, Gennady Golovkin, who HBO has gotten behind very hard, and they've done everything in their power to make him a well-known fighter here in the U.S., and he has become a well-known fighter here in the U.S. among hardcore fans. And Triple G, to his credit and his team with K2 Promotions, they've done their best to make him a well-known fighter by keeping him active. By keeping him busy, by fighting him 4 times last year, and the ratings have grown. So, you know, I think that's a fight that can be made in Martinez, because I really think he's not just a champion in name; he is a champion in his heart. He's a champion. He wants to prove himself, and he wants to let everyone know that he's the man. And he knows that people like me look at almost look at Golovkin as the real middleweight champion, even though he isn't. He's a belt holder. But I look at him as the man in the division, because I just think he'll beat any other 160-pounder. And great fighters like Martinez, they love to prove me wrong. And I wouldn't put it past him to prove me wrong. You know? I mean, just like I don't put it past Cotto to prove me wrong. You know, when he fights Martinez, I don't put it past Martinez to prove me wrong against Golovkin, because Golovkin has looked awesome lately, but he's never fought anybody, as experienced and talented and smart as Sergio Martinez.
Look at the middle division as a whole. It is very, very live right now. You got Peter Quillen there. You got Daniel Gill. You got Mario Murray there. Pat had posted their fights being rescheduled now. Do you see the division as a whole moving forward now after this fight?
Yes, I do. I definitely think it's gonna be profiled more here in the United States. It's been popular in recent years. I mean, especially in Britain with the super middleweights. That's always been pretty strong. Super middleweight. There's always been a lot of super middleweight standouts, and in Europe in general, super middleweight has always been strong. And middleweight right now, middleweight's kind of strong. There's some numbers coming out of there. You know, I like what's his name, Billy Joe Saunders.
Billy Joe Saunders. Yeah, Billy Joe Saunders.
I like him. Ray him, I think, number 10. Callum Smith is just a prospect. But he looks like he has potential.
Tall, rangy, could box, got some power.
I like what I see so far. I mean, he's got a long way to go before he's considered a contender. But middleweight's an international division. There's a lot of talent all around the world. Obviously, Golovkin from Kazakhstan, based in Germany, fights all around the world. Fights in Monte Carlo, fights in Panama, fights in the U.S. Willing to fight in the U.K. Daniel Gill, I think, is excellent, and I think he even in the loss against Darren Barker, he showed American fans a lot, because that was an either-way fight.
Yeah, it was an either-way fight.
And he scored the knockdown, the one knockdown of the fight. And I think I guess he's the front runner to fight Gennady Golovkin in July in New York City, and so that'll get a lot of eyeballs. People, if that happens, win, lose, or draw, I don't think Daniel Gill will embarrass himself against Golovkin. And of course, I favor Golovkin, but I think Gill will acquit himself well, so he'll remain a player. Kid Chocolate he's undefeated. He's got a major title. He's fought on Showtime a number of times. He's got a personality that the media is attracted to. They're going to put him in there, I think, with Danny Jacobs, and that's an interesting fight. So, if Jacobs wins, he's a player. If Jacobs is just really competitive, maybe exposes Kid Chocolate a little bit more than he's already kind of been exposed.
Yeah, Kid Chocolate, he's missing something.
He is missing something, absolutely. Well, he didn't have an extensive amateur career, so there's some technical things that he does wrong. He might be struggling to make super middleweight. Middleweight. I view him more as a super middleweight than a 160-pounder. And let's not forget about the guy from Canada. Let's not forget about David Lemieux. He looks
very good on Saturday.
Robert Guerrero. Not Robert Guerrero.
Yeah, Fernando Guerrero.
Yeah, you know what? Robert Guerrero might have done better. I think he's lost his legs a little bit. He looked a bit shop-worn to me. Or maybe he's kind of psychologically fragile going in there. But all credit to Lemieux. He took care of business. He took care of what was in front of him. And he looks. I'd love to see him against Curtis Stevens. Who's a contender. He's definitely a player. That guy who pressed Curtis Stevens to the mat earlier this year. I'm trying to think of the guy. I think he's from Barbados. God, what's that guy's name?
I know. I saw that one.
Trevino Johnson.
Can't remember. I'm not sure.
His last name is Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
He's a tough guy.
Yeah.
Just has one loss, controversial stoppage to Curtis Stevens.
Yeah.
So yeah, long story short, I think the middleweight division is hotter now than it was 4 or 5 years ago. I really do. And it's more international than ever.
Mm-hmm.
People are watching the up-and-comers. People are watching the fringe contenders. People are looking at the top 10 guys.
Mm-hmm.
People are definitely paying attention to the champion and the title holders.